Okay, today on our podcast we have a wonderful mother that I've known for a while. Her name is Christine Sorenson. She has a lot of really great stories and adventures in her background, and we're excited to hear from her. So, Christine, go ahead and tell us about kind of a little synopsis of your life and where you started, how you got here, that kind of thing.
Okay, so I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and I lived there for the first 2 years of my life. Then my family moved to Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and we moved to a plot of land without a house built. My dad would build the house when he was off work. He would come home on the weekends, and we lived in a tent with my mother, who was a city girl, who I don't know how she handled that, but we did eventually get our house built. I lived on that land until I was 13 years old. My dad was traveling across the country and sat behind somebody in church in Salmon, Idaho, and decided that we were going to move to Salmon, Idaho. And so at the end of that school year, we moved to Salmon, and that is where I graduated from high school. I attended BYU. Before my senior year, I served a mission in the Finland-Helsinki mission, and came back and finished with a degree in secondary education. And I was living in Orem when somebody who I'd taught during the summer got a ride back to her aunt's house from Utah State University. And Robert gave her a ride. And while they were driving, she said, I need you to meet my friend. And so they showed up at my door at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And that is how I met Robert. And he also served in the Finland-Helsinki mission. And we had the same two mission presidents. We never met as missionaries. So when I met him, I was talking to him in Finnish, and I was like, no way, I must have misunderstood him. So as soon as he left, I pulled out my records from my mission, and there was the picture of the missionaries going home, and I saw the picture of him going home from his mission.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, oh, he really was there. And that friend who had made him come over to meet me had promised she would never try to set me up with anyone because I hated being set up. She called me and said, would you go out with him? And so I said, okay. I didn't really think I'd hear from him because he was in Logan and I was in Orem. The next week, he called and asked me out, and I told him no, because my mom and brother were in town. And so then we didn't go out, and then I was like, okay, that's it, and then he called again. So That's kind of the story.
How fun.
And then we landed here eventually because Robert got a job here.
Okay. And have you always been here? It used to be third ward. Have you always been in the third ward?
No. So when we first came, we were in Richardson. We were in the Richardson stake, and then we moved and we were in the second ward. When the second ward was dissolved, we became part of the third ward, and now we're part of the Round Rock ward, and we've been 3 wards in one house.
That's pretty good. Well, we're glad that you're still in the ward. We were excited about that when the ward split. That's really fun. So, tell me about, because you and Robert have 6 wonderful children, some of our favorite people. What has it been like raising disciples of Jesus Christ in your home? What has that been like as a mother?
So I think that it's a process, not just for them, but also for us. Sometimes I think that Heavenly Father just gave me kids who want to do things that are good because he knew I couldn't handle anything else. So, and that doesn't mean that my kids don't make mistakes and don't make wrong choices sometimes, but I think that they do have a desire to do what is right. So
that's really neat. So it's okay if your kid's screaming and freaking out about something. That's normal, but
yeah,
you've seen their hearts are good.
Yeah, I've had sacrament meetings where Sarah wanted to use the boys' bathroom because she was used to Daddy taking her to the bathroom because I was in nursery, and she wouldn't go into the women's bathroom and was screaming bloody murder, which she probably doesn't want me to share that information. I also had yelled at Lowry during the sacrament because he was kicking me with his super, super hard shoes in the shins. So I think that for us, it became a little bit easier when instead of sitting in the back row, we started sitting towards the front of the chapel. And I don't know why that is. It really was not led by me because I really wanted a quick escape route when people didn't behave. It was led by Lowry when he was a deacon. Then he decided we were sitting in the front. So, and I don't know why that made it easier for us, because you think, oh my goodness, like I'm trapped here with the people expecting my kids are going to behave.
And the whole ward can see you up there.
Yes.
Maybe it's that, proximity to the speaker, there's not a lot of distraction.
Maybe. I don't know exactly what it is. Like I still am probably a back row sitter if I were to just choose myself, but I probably wouldn't want to go back to sitting in the back row because it really did get a lot easier when we moved forward.
That's so cool. All right. So try sitting up closer to the front. I'm liking these tips. Any other tips for moms who are in the thick of it still? Takes a while to see the payoff sometimes.
Yeah, it always takes a while to see the payoff. You don't usually see like what the long-term consequences of either good things that you do or bad things that you do. It takes time for those things to happen.
Wow.
So
that's good to remember. Keep doing the good things.
Yep.
That's so neat. Okay, so let's see. Another question. What's your favorite recipe? For dinner and then a treat, because you guys love to cook in your family.
I like to cook unless I'm stressed. So if I'm stressed, I'll honestly eat soup out of a can.
Okay.
So, and if I'm cooking things, one of the things like I like to cook when it's like a big family affair, and so we're making things all together. So we really like to make Cornish pasties, and it's fun to make tamales. Though like Timo is like, make tamales now, and I'm like, you don't make tamales when it's summer. Sorry. So
you do that at Christmas, Thanksgiving time, right?
Yeah, or just when it's cold
outside. Okay. So you like those big group recipes, get everybody involved. That's cool. That's really fun. I know that you recently, well, it's not recently anymore, you became a teacher in the public schools. Yeah. How has that experience been?
So I had my teaching degree and certification before I ever was married. But going back to work as a teacher when I am a mom, it has been kind of brutal, to be honest. Like, I'm sure there's people who are a lot more organized than I am who can manage that, but I work a lot of hours, and I do feel like my kids get neglected. And I feel like I never really come up for air from the time school starts till the time it gets out at the end of the year. And every holiday is spent doing paperwork because it just coincides with the end of the 9-week grading period and sped paperwork.
Wow.
So every holiday has to be spent doing some paperwork. So
that's a lot of stress.
So I think that it's a positive thing because it has helped our family financially. It has made me grow. I don't necessarily like to grow. I'd rather just stay home and read books, but it has made me grow.
That's really neat.
So
now you've worked with kids who have learning disabilities and official diagnosis. Like these are kids that are hard to work with sometimes for a regular teacher. What have you learned from working with them that you didn't see with working with regular students?
So I can see like individual talents, and sometimes I think we do a really, really horrible job in our school system of bringing out the talents in everybody. Like there's kind of a model of what kind of student does well in school, and some of the students that I teach are brilliant people, but they do have severe learning disabilities, and I think this even being their teacher, that we're not preparing them for life the way that we ought to. And we're not bringing out the things that they're really good at.
What do you think would help that? Like, I mean, we can't fix the whole school system, but what do you think in that situation would help a particular student like that?
Sometimes I think vocational skills. I think that probably a lot of my boy students need more physical activity. A lot of them are athletes, but I think that sitting still for 7 hours is really, really hard for them. I think that, I don't know entirely. Like, I don't. I think sometimes we should focus on life skills instead of just reading and writing and arithmetic. And like, people have some really, really good skills. Like, I have students who cannot read, but pass the reading STAR test because they're intelligent people. But I know that they can't read at a pre-primer level.
Wow.
And so, like, part of what I do is, like, because you are intelligent, like, you can read these questions and you can make sense out of things. You can choose rational answers, even if you could not read the passage before. But sometimes I'm not sure that that's, like, the very best way that we could be using those students' time for learning.
That makes sense.
Like, sometimes I wish, like, that we would give people life skills maybe they're not getting at home. Like, make sure that people learn how to drive. Make sure that they learn how to cook, how they learn to clean up for themselves and things like that. And then I'm not saying that we don't teach people how to read, because I think reading and being able to do simple math is really important and lets you learn and also protect yourself. But there are alternative ways that we can use to help people. And maybe sometimes people just, especially by the time they get into higher grade levels, they've just really been demoralized by the school system, because the things that they're really, really good at have never been recognized. And they're not going to be recognized necessarily in a traditional school setting.
Wow.
So,
and as a teacher, you're kind of bound to, here's the curriculum, here's what we do.
yeah.
But I know that you've talked about your students and you've pointed out some of those gifts. Have they ever been surprised when you tell them they're really good at something?
I think so, because I think sometimes I think they really are demoralized when they come and they are just really down on themselves. They haven't really been successful in education. And sometimes I think that becomes such a hindrance to them that it's like a block for them to learn. Like, if somebody has been really, really embarrassed because they can't read, like, by the time they're in middle school, like, they're really, really embarrassed to try. And not everybody reacts the same way. But I have 2 students who I think are absolutely brilliant people. Neither of them are readers.
Wow.
So, I don't know.
I really liked your suggestion of taking them out, giving them really real life skills. Because you take a child and maybe they're struggling with reading, but if you're teaching them driving, they can read stop, they can start to recognize some of the common street signs, and it's out of that embarrassing, maybe shameful environment that they're used to. That's a really good idea.
It's a shameful thing. Like, they feel shame. Because especially the kids who are really intelligent and can't read.
And that would be really hard. To have so much capability and you're measured on the wrong stick, almost.
Yeah, but I think even, like, they can learn. I know they can learn. But I think it's maybe always going to be hard for them? Yeah. And I just wish that, like, they were recognized for what they came with.
The world needs more teachers like you. I could really see this student and just love them. I think that would be a blessing. That's really neat. Well, thank you for your service in our schools here. I know that it takes a lot of you and your family, and you're making a difference. So thank you. I keep picturing all these stories you've told me, but I want you to think of something, or maybe it's knowledge that you've gained from an experience you have. What do you wish that other people could see or understand from your perspective? Whether it's where you've worked with kids or different hiking adventures you've been on, or just something really beautiful you've seen. What do you wish that other people could understand or see or feel?
So some people, I think, just know this already, but one of the really hard things for me to learn has been being willing to do things that I don't feel competent at doing. Because, I learned that when you avoid something that causes you stress, that you feel temporary relief, but then the next time you have to do it, the amount of stress you feel is actually higher. And so for me, even getting into teaching here, that was really key for me being able to move forward. It was something that was needed for my family, but I felt really paralyzed, and I don't like it. It's not a comfortable feeling. To say, okay, I am going to step forward and I'm going to try to do things. But I know that works. It does reduce stress. Is it still stressful? Yes. But whether it's like silly things that you think this isn't something that should cause you stress, but just picking up the phone and calling somebody. I could be stressed about it for a week. But just being willing to say, okay, I'm going to call someone, it makes it easier the next time. And being willing to say, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to apply for this job, even though I don't feel competent. And I know that I work hard, but I look at other people and I'm like, but they are so good at this, and they're just so naturally good at it that sometimes it intimidates me to try, and I don't like to try in front of people, I guess. And I know some people are just really naturally brave, and they're less scared by failure, I guess. I don't know. But that's one thing that I learned, and I would say I didn't learn that until I was in my 40s. Even when I was a kid, and I don't know what started this. I think when I was a preschooler I wasn't that way, but probably by the time I was 5 or 6 I was. And I would wait for my little sister to do things so that I could follow her around, because I wouldn't dare to do things by myself.
Wow.
So, and things that I really, really wanted to do, but I wouldn't do them unless my sister did them with me. And sometimes, age-wise, she wasn't allowed to do everything that I would have been able to do. But I would wait until the 2 years passed and she was with me, or she was 17 months behind me, but 2 years behind me in school. Okay. So when I went to high school, I really loved running, but I didn't run until my junior year because Lempy was a freshman that year. I stopped playing in band when I was in 8th grade, even though I loved it, because I was afraid of the high school band teacher, even though he was my 8th grade band teacher. But I saw him be mean to my older sister, and so then I was like, I can't go to high school and play in band because he's mean.
Wow.
So I was really, really, really wimpy, and I still, by nature, that is the way that I am. I would like to know how to do everything perfectly before I try.
Okay. But it helps to have somebody to observe before you try it.
Yes, I could observe people for 75 years and not feel comfortable to do it, though. It's better to have somebody to do it with me. And my little sister, Lempy, is super brave, and she's the kind of person, if there's 300 people in a room, 299 of them are looking at her.
Wow.
because she likes to be the center of attention and she's really good at being it. And it was really nice to have her growing up because I could really hide behind her. And then I could do the things that I wanted to do without anyone noticing that I was doing them.
Wow.
So,
Well, that's an amazing story of two sisters. I really admired the fact that you noticed that tendency and then you decided to start facing it, even though it was scary and doing the hard thing. Like that shows a lot of faith to say, hey, I don't know all the answers. I mean, that's like Nephi moment, picking up the phone. I mean, it's not the same amount of danger, but it feels like it sometimes. But that shows a lot of courage and faith. And has there ever been a time where the Lord like didn't help you and kind of let you fall flat on your face? Or
I think I do fall on my face. Like, I think we all do. I think like all of us have times when we don't succeed. And that's just life. And it's not that God doesn't help us. Like, even when we fall on our face, God can help us. Like, now, do I sometimes think, why? Like, why isn't everything going my way? This isn't how it's supposed to be. But the truth is, like, we learn in those times when we fall on our face. And then maybe if we were less afraid to fall on our face, we would learn faster. If we didn't just try to stay in the comfort area all the time, because that's where it's comfortable.
Book learning versus classroom learning versus real life. Okay, I'm seeing the connection here.
Yeah, I like book learning.
Me too. Let's do bookworms here. I'm feeling this. Oh, but I guess we do have to get out and experience some real life adventures. Now, I have heard, I do want, this story keeps coming back to mind. And your sister was not here and you were not 40. You once went hiking up Angel Falls. Is that where you went? With 3 little kids, or you were pregnant. And do you remember that hike?
We went up to like Delicate Arch when I was pregnant, or is it somewhere else?
Was that the one that was, you were up on top of the summit and somebody was throwing a tantrum?
We went hiking. This isn't one. That was hiking up to Delicate Arch and Arches, and I was pregnant with, I think Sarah was a baby. Okay. I was pregnant with Hans, and Keziah was a toddler. And so we were hiking up there, and Keziah hiked the whole way until we got to that ledge at the end where it's like a huge drop where you don't really want your 2-year-old walking by themselves. And so then I picked her up and I was carrying her, and she was screaming and having the biggest tantrum because I wouldn't let her walk. So we walked up that with her having a tantrum.
Okay.
But we do like to go hiking, and we hiked up Mount Smiley in Idaho.
Okay.
That was another time, but the girls were bigger. Timo was still little, and we hiked up there, and we got up towards the top, and the girls had already made it to the summit, and they turned around and they told me, Mom, if you keep going, and I was like 400 feet from the summit probably.
But that's a summit. Like, you got to keep going, yeah.
Well, but they said somebody's going to die if you keep going.
Oh, okay.
And so I chose to trust them. The wind was really, really hard. It was blowing Timo over, and he and I were hiking together. And so I took Sarah, and we started going down the mountain, and I ended up with Timo and all of my little nieces and nephews except one, and then Kezi ended up with my sister, and somehow I made it down the mountain with all these little kids with no other adults.
What in the world? Wow.
And I was really mad because I thought that I took all these little kids and you guys probably just climbed the mountain without me. But it wasn't the truth. So my sister hurt her knee coming down. Lowry ran out of water. They were miserable. Like, they came back in the dark, and the last half mile coming down that is just sagebrush and big rocks. And so, like, I ended up standing at the bottom of the mountain holding a lantern because they're coming down that in the dark. But yeah, when I got down to the bottom with all these hungry kids and nobody else was there, I was just like, oh my goodness, they sent me with all the little kids and they went back. And I ended up leaving Sarah feeding the kids. And then I went back to see why they weren't coming down the mountain. And that's when I was like, oh.
Well, that's a hero story right there. You saved the children. You were a light in the darkness.
No, but I am like, we are going to go back and climb that mountain. It is one of my to-do things.
Oh, my goodness. So have you been back since? Or you're still?
No,
okay.
It's still on my to-do list. My brother's like, he loves that mountain. He's like, you would really go and do it again? I was like, yes. But he just needs to know, I am not waiting for him to get up at noon.
Are you a morning person?
No, I'm not.
No? Okay.
I'm not, but I would still rather get up early and hike in the morning and get up. I hike slow too. Like, I could have probably started at 6 o'clock and he would have probably passed me anyway.
Oh, okay.
So, but
slow but steady.
Yeah, especially with little kids. Like, it would have just been better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I will go hike it sometime.
Well, we can't wait to hear from you. That's great. Thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
And I'll remember that. Climb that mountain. I really will. Thank you. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we close?
Nope. That's good.
All right. Thanks, Christine. And do you nominate anybody to be interviewed?
I was thinking, what about Amy Dixon?
Great nomination. I agree. All right.
Okay.
Until next time.